Chimonia, Deshinogramania, Chimokoti, Niranekesha Kurmakatia, Shimokurmakatieshe, Yarana Shimokurmakatonia, Shimionia. Welcome back, you guys. Episode 16 in the Bringing Light to the Darkness series. I'm glad to be back, and I've been missing the channel, and I want to build up this channel, build out the channel, and be doing more here. So we'll see what evolves in as the months unfold here, and how that might be possible. I'm kept quite busy with client work, which I love, and I'm doing the work I came here to do. But let's see what might be born also here on YouTube. It's been awesome in Alaska since I last saw you. We have had March was an excellent look behind me. The aurora season in March was fantastic. I wanted to bring that with me today. We're now in May, and finally, like, it was just a week ago. This is May 20th. It was just a week ago we started getting little green buds, and the snow is mostly gone. And it's been I'm actually kind of missing winter. I know that sounds weird. And the light there's some kind of light for most of the night. So yeah, it's that kind of world. We're moving into the midnight sun, for sure. Land of extremes. Just beautiful. And I wanted to share too that I'm just an update around summer stuff and summer sessions. I'm still offering, you can still book audio sessions on my website of any kind. Those are all available still. I've got to pause on live sessions for the moment because I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling, and I can always take the audio files with me, even if I'm in the backcountry. I did a bunch of that actually. When I was in India, I was doing that a couple of years ago, and also last summer when I was out on the land a lot. And those transmissions and those readings and things that come through through me being surrounded by the mountains and the tundra and rivers and so on are they bear that I feel like they bear that frequency in a way. So yeah, I think some people thought I was totally not taking any bookings at all, and I wanted to clarify that. Yeah. I'm also still on Telegram. We'll be continuing to build that up as well. And I'm completely dropped off Facebook. So if you've left me messages or friended me there, why don't you just come join us on Telegram? And I just enjoy posting there things that there's no way I'd be posting about this stuff on Facebook. So that's the pleasure of a censorship-free platform is ongoing. And that, again, that link is below in the description for Telegram. Also, we're going to be getting into some Russian info via Montauk long ago, but it's interestingly, there's a lot of Russian, threads floating through my life. I've been interviewing ongoingly with a channel called Astrolionica, which is probably the largest SSP and kind of light work related channel for the Russian speaking audience. And we have an ongoing series right now there that is kind of delving into the whole, like, my whole story. So it's unfolding. It's also with question and answer sessions we're also doing. That's unfolding over some months too. And it's interesting. We record, of course, well, how else would we record but in English, my native language? But they do it. My voice then is quiet in the background, but they kind of do a translation over it. But I'm also recording with another Russian channel called Edges of Eternity, which is also quite big on the platform. And we work with a translator. So I speak in English, and it goes through our beautiful translator, Marina, to the host who speaks back in Russian and, back into English. So I've been enjoying that format because it gives me some pause. Like, a lot of interviews and a lot of stuff that I do more publicly kind of races along. It's a little too fast for what my nervous system really likes. I like the pause when there's I have to, I can't keep talking. I have to rest, and that gives me something that I need. And I think over the years of interviewing now, I have a sense of what works well for me and what doesn't. So that channel, Edges of Eternity, is also Mira Solaris is the owner creator of that. She puts out a ton of content, but she's hosting the Russian Secret Space conference online, and I will be part of that. We just recorded for it, so it should be out anytime, and you can hear it in both Russian and English at the same time. If that comes out before I post this, I will have it in the link below. And I just wanted to update you about that. I mean, I think my American audience might be a little bewildered, like, why are you on all these other, like, yeah, more international platforms? Yeah, and that's something that's just evolving slowly over time, naturally. Yeah, and I've been enjoying kind of getting just a broader, I think, broader reach and having Russian speaking clients. Isn't that interesting? And getting used to the Russian, I have to say it's a little getting used to a different social sort of, the way things are done is different, and the sort of abruptness that I read in the culture, it can be a little bit, for me as an American, can feel a little uncomfortable. Like I still don't totally have a feel for everything. So just little details on that. You may have found me or seen me recently also with James Rink on Super Soldier Talk. We just did an interview last month it was just we had a nice vibe. James and I met a year ago at the Secret Space conference. We were both speakers in Grafton, the Journey to Truth conference, and we spent a long time hanging out before we actually went live, for our recording last month. And that also really helps I think my comfort level as a person speaking about pretty heavy stuff. Like, it just makes a better rapport. And you can imagine that, right? We went into Dulce twinning and Montauk all at once. And it's funny too, after interviewing for a few years now, my system can get pretty wound up talking about this stuff. Like, I'll feel like I'm really adrenalized after, we were talking almost 2 hours, and by the time I'm done and on my own again, I'm like blasting off. And again, interesting to observe the cadence of my nervous system and what's going on as I'm kind of talking. We're going into Dean, we're going into, really deep trauma in a way, at least for me, that's in the background of the more surface level discussion, and learn to be more aware of that as I move forward. So, but it got me also thinking again about the topic of Dean and twinning is something that I have to admit I keep, a bit at arm's length. It's a difficult one, I think, because, I've moved forward with my healing, and of course that's a work in progress continually, but I feel like Dean, can be connected to him quite psychically, and I feel that I can I sense, and almost like could firsthand feel myself. It comes through me that he's still quite struggling, and I think it pains me, in a way. Yeah, he's still kind of caught, I would say. Still caught, not unbound entirely from the system. So I feel too that, I'm better at dealing with what happened to me. Like, I can metabolize that and I can accept that, but it's almost like thinking about what I had to see him go through and also feel him go through, because we were, trauma bonded and psychically bonded and emotionally, like, the same being, the same person we were meant to be, that I feel it so deeply. I mean, it's empathy on steroids, right? Yeah, so I also went into, I think on that James Rink interview, a little bit more how they bonded us in this precise way, not in graphic detail. I mean, I don't know that anybody really needs to hear the depths of that, but I think I'll read that again here. It's relevant to things that I'm working on now. I've spoken on the channel about my own relational wounding, how I relate to others, whether intimately or otherwise, just in friendship or with family or with acquaintances or whatever, is the remaining or outstanding piece that still needs TLC, right? that still needs some work, and I'm aware of that, and that's like something that's like kind of hot and boiling over on the stove of my life, right? Like it's on the front burner, and I'm working with it. So I want to come back around to some of that and the work I'm doing with like healing attachment wounds and attachment theory. We'll do that at the end, but I want to read through this again. I think this might be helpful to somebody out there. I know that people message me or send me private inquiries about the twinning topic and many other things, but I know people are working with the twinning topic, and it's a difficult one. Yeah, and so as far as, and we're going to get to the bulk, the meat of our journey today, but these are some sort of the preamble, some topics I wanted to also dive into just briefly. And this is from my journals again, and just reading through that kind of verbatim here with Dean. And this was at the Navy base north of Chicago in 1982. First, they kept us together in a cage with no clothes, food, or water, and we would be left like that with no basic human needs met, cold, hungry, scared, and alone for days. It was known we would be bond, absolutely, yeah. We would help comfort each other and keep each other warm, and so on. Then we'd be removed from each other and made to watch the other be abused or tortured by handlers. So removing us after we'd become bonded in itself was kind of traumatic, because we were becoming like pair bonded. We were pair bonded. We would be made to feel their pain and also to become responsible for their pain. So as we were watching them being abused, and this was part of the bond that would be created between us over some weeks and a couple of months, I think. Eventually, we would be made to abuse each other. Intermittently, we'd be paired, kept together in isolation, to bond so intensely that some twisted iteration of love, let's say, love, need, and pathos would be our glue over time. And so back and forth between abuse and comforting each other, abuse and comforting each other. And that really equates over time with a true trauma bond. These cycles of derangement and also tenderness in a way, right? Pleasure and pain. And the bond would be broken and put back together repeatedly. So this would, again, this would be the glue that would keep us united across space to Mars, right? And there were psychic things that were also going on within this, but the physicality of it, that's what it looks like. The basic, really basic armature of that. And isolation for us also being important. So there would be no one else there at all. Like we'd be in our own complete universe. And that's how we would see ourselves later. We are two had become one in a universe, like a vacuum almost. Our own reality, our own fucked up reality, right? In our own, in a place where we had to survive against all odds, right? With no other person or frame of reference to intervene here. And it becomes almost like, what is sane and insane? We don't even know at this point. So I wanted to share that in light of the conversation we'll continue with about like relational healing as opposed to relational wounding. And just to say, like the piece of Dean and the twinning in my life is like still, I think it's always fresh and difficult to deal with on some level because it's current. Like it's not over for him. And it's, I would say in a way, it makes it so it's not over for us. Isn't that interesting? But I think you could see how that would be true as well. There's also just in the past week, 10 days, there's been new Mars memories. I'm not going to go, I have to sit with stuff for a while. So that'll be the topic of the next video. Like what happened to me that caused me to crash on Mars before the benevolent reptilians picked me up? I always had a sense there was a lot there. I think I needed some time because the situation there that's arising is quite complicated, very complicated and illicit. quite quite a legal activity going on. I think we'll leave it there. Let's dive into the um, the main topics of the day. Yeah. And going back into Montauk, a little bit different angle, and going into like deep diving into the silver bullet, being a time travel, one of the iterations of time travel that was developed at Montauk. Or at least let's say, being used heavily at times at Montauk. And what I actually was sent to view, I'm starting to have memories come back of, and this is something I'd asked about too, right? Like these little questions that arose maybe a year or two ago. Now I'm starting to get answers. So what timeline potentials was I being sent into, right? While journeying the silver bullet, and going really deep in intimate view into that very shortly here. So this is, again, just to give, like, if anybody's new here, maybe most people know the story, but just like a little sound bite. I got to Montauk through the auspices of my godfather, I've always called him Mr. E. He's still alive in poor health, and he was my godfather, who was also working side by side with my father in the deep black classified world, military industrial complex. And yeah, he took me to child pornography events, child sex porn events, till I was, he had me with him until I was 6 or 7. Yeah. And so Montauk happened. He had a private plane as well, and he had been in the Air Force. Anyway, that was in 78, 79 when I was in Montauk. And yeah. So this is when we talk about viewing, this is how many years ago, right? Like 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, things I viewed in the silver bullet. What's a silver bullet? So I've talked about it again, probably briefly, and you may have a sense of it. And that, to be clear, the silver bullet is just my name. I don't know what the formal name is. I have no memories of ever being in a Montauk chair, not yet. I mean, I don't anticipate that. All the memories I have are being prone in this thing that looks like a silver bullet. And it's very sleek, very high tech. It almost looks aerodynamic. And I also call it a coffin or a time tunnel torture tube. It lifts up and you are kind of closed into it. And there's all a big signature of being inside of it is the torsion fields that are moving all through and all around me. There's this feeling of movement and kind of being nauseous inside of it. I'll also go into the tech a little bit later and dive into that in a more forthright way. Things that I've been observing and learning and remember, and kind of putting things together around how, it's actually really interesting from a more objective standpoint. Sometimes it's hard to divorce my subjective experience, and of course it would be, right? Like from everything else. So I can just look at like the sort of amazing stuff that was going on there. Hard to call it just amazing. I mean, people were being hurt and killed. So I think that gives just the basics on that. And like I said, I had wondered why I hadn't gotten memories back of all, because I was sent out in the silver bullet to journey into time, forward into time, 100, 200 times easily. That's intense, given what I know is happening to me inside of it. It was back in January that I got the first reveal on this, the first recall, mid-January this year. And I do a lying down somatic meditation as soon as I get up, before I'm even awake. I've just woken up from sleep, in other words, and I am lying in bed and I work with my breath and working with the body and the breath and somatic awareness that kind of keeps me in that altered brainwave state and also allows me to go deeper. And sometimes I do get memories back that way. It's not the intent of why I do it, but in this case, it's interesting because in sleep, you're prone. In the silver bullet, you're prone. my child self. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Because I'm starting to get these flashes. I'm starting to get like, oh, I have that feeling something's really big is coming up. And this was out of nowhere. I was not looking for this. It was very spontaneous. All I did was what I did intentionally was put myself in a different brainwave state. So I got my recorder because I'm like, something's happening and I'm gonna get this down. So I recorded myself just speaking and it's slow. You can look at the transcript and listen to the audio file itself on my blog. I'll post that below. It's kind of interesting. I think it's pretty interesting because it's so detailed. And yeah, I'm going back into the silver bullet and I describe what I'm feeling and seeing and hearing and everything. And the gist of this recall, this first one, was basically I'm viewing a benevolent Russian ET alliance. And I believe that why I have been given these revelations, let's say more recently, is because they're now current. I viewed these things decades ago, but they seem now to be, or I would say I question this. I feel intuitively that the reason I've been given them back, the memories back, is because they are current. So let's see if there's anything else about that, but I think I'm going to just go and read it. There's no better way for me to describe this than by speaking it out verbatim. I also, what's come in since January has also revealed this handler lady. She's a female Navy personnel, and she is the one who is handling me during my time in the Silver Bullet. And she's got her little, polyester blue like suit all prim and buttoned up, and her little Navy hat and her nylons and her little blue skirt and her little click, click, click shoes. And of everything that I recalled, and some of it's very tormented, as we'll see here in a moment, but like, this fucks me up that lady was like, they use you, they abuse you through this duplicity of how, I'm attached to her like she's my fucking mother. It's gross. Excuse me. It's just like, this hits me more than anything else that they did to me in the Silver Bullet, because it's emotionally and psychologically so manipulative. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let me dive into this. So this is January 15th this year. And remember, this is the speech here is a little different than my usual beta brainwave state that I'm speaking in now. It's not the same because I'm regressing to a childlike state myself, and I'm also going slowly and speaking slowly. So just a little different here, and just to explain why that is, why the verbal delivery is such as it is. And also, this isn't the full transmission or the full translation of that audio file transcript. So just diving in here. And again, from a child's perspective, I feel spinny to the point of throwing up. Longing for comfort inside this machine. I'm in the Silver Bullet. And I don't know that yet. I'm just starting to speak. I have no idea what's happening, and I just go with it. I want my dolly or someone to hold me. It feels like something's going wrong and there's commotion around me. It feels like I'm inside inside the Silver Bullet. It's closed, but nothing's really happening yet. There's commotion of some kind. Yeah, maybe a malfunction. And I hear someone saying outside, leave her, we need to start the cycle again. And wow, some voices are going back and forth, leave her. Then another voice, no, we could kill her. And then the first voice, no, we just have to move on. So, the texts are having a little back and forth. I don't know how I was able to breathe inside this thing. I'm feeling claustrophobia and a lot of darkness and a new cycle beginning. I mean, cycling through a time journey. And then I feel myself go limp, like into a blank state. I begin to feel calm. I don't know if this is a drug state where the fear of claustrophobia and how to breathe and being so alone and confused, spinning, it's all just kind of fading out. There's darkness and a feeling of falling. It's almost a little bit peaceful. Feels like slow motion movement, a part of my being leaving, splitting away from my body. And I just feel kind of floaty inside. I could die here and just keep going, I think. I feel very separate from my body in the coffin, the bullet, what we could call a time machine. I'm floating up somewhere. I feel untethered and I wonder if this is what it's like to die. Yeah, it's kind of a drug state. I feel peace that might be artificial. I don't know if I'm dying. Have I died? Am I leaving? And then I feel this strong jolt of electric impulse banging through me, and the thing is being lit up with electroshock, jolting my body. It just feels like banging, banging, banging. And I can't struggle with it. I'm aware it's happening, and on some level, I'm aware that it's incredibly painful. But there's also this part of me that's still floaty. Like there's two different parts of my awareness, and they're pretty clear right now. There's more than one me. I hear part of me screaming, but I'm very separate from that part. I feel distant from my pain. I hear a voice outside saying, "Find out what she's seeing." Well, I'm not really seeing anything yet. They're amplifying the voltage and sending more electroshock through the coffin. I'm trying to feel how those impulses are sent into me. It feels like it's all over my body. The whole thing feels electric. My feet, the soles of my feet especially, and then the strong impulse at the base of my spine and something around my pelvic floor. And then my head too, but it's all through me. I'm being electrocuted. I feel myself wanting to suck my thumb, and I'm very distant from the pain of my body, just like traveling in space. Yeah. And as I'm reading this, I can really feel myself going back into, I feel this through my child's perspective and how she wants to hold her dolly. I really feel that coming through strongly. Oh, this is kind of hard. Ah, and I'm going somewhere. The screams in my body become faint, and I'm journeying into a command center. A lot of controls, a lot of big screens. This room is dimly lit, a monitoring station. There's people here. The electroshock down in my body feels like it's continuing at an excruciating level. I can't feel it. Notice how I keep saying that. I can't feel it. I'm just aware of the room I'm in. I hear portaling device, quote unquote, an operational gateway that this seems to be the command center of. I'm not actually sure if I'm on Earth or in space. I hear other people down there, the people electrocuting me. They're yelling at me to tell what I see or to show what I see. Then I have this disengagement that's going on. Like, I don't care if they kill me. I don't have to show them anything. They could kill me and I'll just keep going. I don't have to go back there. I begin to feel curious about what I'm looking at, though. I feel that in my child self. And it's the child, my child's, a childlike curiosity and sense of wonder is also starting to develop here. And I feel that independently of everything else that's going on. I find that pretty interesting. What's on the monitor? I'm wondering. It's up in space. So I see that now. I see the sky. There's other screens and they're smaller. Let me see if I can know more about this place I'm in. It doesn't feel hostile. It feels neutral. I'm wondering if I can see the beings, the other people. I don't know if they're all human. I feel peaceful inside. They're looking at Earth. The people in the room are, yeah, not all human. Feels very beautiful to look at Earth this way. Then I hear a Montauk voice saying, "You're in the command center of the enemy. Do you realize that? Do you realize that?" I just feel peaceful, so peaceful. The juxtaposition of those two energies is quite something. I don't feel like they're enemies. Are they enemies? Can you see the controls and the commands? Can you see the sequence? I feel myself thinking, I don't know what they mean. The sequence of what? The sequence of the command center controls. What is the sequence? And they keep saying this over and over and yelling at me. It's alphabetized. I'm supposed to get some data, some alphanumeric data, and I don't really care to do that right now. I just feel floaty. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to listen to their commands. And I'm still curious about what is unfolding here. Look under the flap. Can you tell where they're going? Where is their destination? Are you stupid? So this is ongoingly from Montauk. In this experience, I'm intentionally not cooperating with them. I am blocking my mind somehow, blocking what they want to see and enjoying it myself without relaying the information. And I can tell I'm gloating and sort of enjoying that aspect of all this, that I can somehow withhold information from the handlers. They continue to send electronic impulses through my body in waves back in the coffin, the silver bullet. I feel their frustration and I feel them yelling, "I will not do their bidding." I mean, it's remarkable that a 6-year-old kid could be like this aware, given everything that's gone on to get me in this state, and all the abuse and drugging and so on and so forth. Wow. Um, Show us the devices they're using. They're so angry at me. I don't know how I'm blocking this. I feel a feminine energy coming in. It feels like a nice lady. She feels Nordic to me. And where I am feels Russian. Oh, this is about Russian space exploration. This feels like an interface with extraterrestrials. They're amplifying frequency in the coffin. I can feel that. I understand now. Part of what I'm viewing is on Earth, like a command center on Earth. But I'm also viewing a Russian spaceship that it's connected to. And I know I'm supposed to be gathering intelligence about the ship, the Russian ET. Oh, this is like a joint project. It has something to do with a portal. In this particular situation, it feels like the Nordics are actually cooperating with the Russians. And there's no nefarious activity. I don't sense that here. The intentions do not have to do with the destruction or control of mankind. This is an alliance based on technological exploration and advancing space exploration. It's also a gateway into a Pleiadian star system. Right now, my command is to cause harm in some way, whether it's gathering data or disturbing what they're working on in some way, and I do not feel cooperative with that. Notice how I keep saying that. I think maybe that's a way I'm sort of, finding just a shred of autonomy and self-sovereignty, like this big inside of all this, right? I'm continuing to scream and my body is in pain, but I'm very disconnected from that as I continue to feel peaceful in this realm of looking. I don't feel that this has anything to do with American counterintelligence on the part of the Russians or anything with the Americans at all. However, the Americans want the technology. They want to know what's happening or what could be happening or might happen. I'm going back and forth between a Russian command center on Earth and a Pleiadian ship. So we have this kind of triangulation. There's something about a Russian ship, a Pleiadian ship, and the command center on Earth. There's also a command center in space. So I'm kind of moving between them. And I know that's probably not exceptionally clear through this. This is a Russian thing, a Russian interaction, a Russian exploration. And I have to say, it's beautiful to not see distortion here. I don't see deviance or duplicity, and it feels very genuine. I hear them yelling again. They're going to take me back soon because this isn't going how it's supposed to go. I feel myself kind of, well, I'm almost falling in love with this Pleiadian. This lady, she's wearing a blue suit, really shimmery blue, beautiful, blonde, and so on. This lady in the spaceship. I know I'm to get in trouble because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. They're going to start the whole thing over and I am going to be punished. I pause here to ask in the recording that I'm making while I'm in my bed in Alaska, what have I seen here? And I hear and channel the glory of true exploration in space in which no one is being harmed and no one is being controlled. You are seeing a contemporary alliance, one that at the time had not yet been developed. There's some numbers and codes coming into my head from this experience, and I feel like I'm trying to block them and not let them through to my handlers. I don't want them to extract this information from me, and I feel myself reaching for the hand of the Pleiadian lady. And for me, it's a bit emotional as well. I can remember this very clearly, like I know they're about to slam the tech back and bring, slam the bullet down, slam all the tech down and shoot me back. Because they know that I'm reaching for comfort and the essence of love, which is everything I could want, is represented by this beautiful Pleiadian extraterrestrial female. And she's like almost like the mother figure I'm really looking for, like something, to hold a softness and nurturing. What does a 6-year-old child need? Needs her mother, needs safety and protection and love. And that's what I feel here. And I'm just so aching for that in the worst way, like the absolute worst way, like get me the fuck out of here, take me with you. And I go on. I'm being pulled back rapidly. It all slams shut. The coffin is open. My body is limp and I am unconscious. I look like I'm dead. They're rearranging my body. I hear they will be waiting to administer the next round, like in meaning to send me out again. They give me like 10 minutes of regrouping and then they put me back out, but they'd have to revive me to do it. So they had drugs which would help that. And one more paragraph here. I want to say that I'm not dead, but it feels like every time they send me into this, it's as if there's a near-death experience, and they do it over and over and over again. Particularly with me, they must have given up at some point because I'm resistant to relaying the information properly. Yeah. In previous time, as I've relayed my Montauk experiences, I've said that I felt like I failed over and over in the silver bullet, that they do this to me time and time and time again. Like I never got it right, and now I understand why. And in a way, because this is also a trauma-based mind control technology. It's not just time tech. It's not just for looking in the future, it's for fracturing young minds. And it was a punishment that they kept sending me out. And so we could see the pattern emerging. Like they send me out, they want the information, I'm blocking it somehow. Like incredible amount of resistance. Like I said, for somebody who's 6 years old and being drugged, hypnotized, abused in unfathomable ways, to still have this much authority in one's own will center activated. I think that's remarkable. So that's what I have on that. That particular recall, I mean, that was the most profound and graphic of the like what was it was because I took you pretty deep into what was actually going on with the electrocution and the shock and the spinning kind of feeling, the nausea, and so much of the emotional qualities were really intact here, not just the information. But I think it conveys that so well, and I'm grateful for that. And I have to say, when I was in this recall, it's very much, and this is how I read too. Like I'm deposited into things in a way that's very visceral. It's not like I'm viewing it in third person, but I'm in it experientially in first person. Yeah. So I want to say too that on a happier note, a lighter note, let's say, that Pleiadian lady, I call her the nice Pleiadian lady because it's my child's shorthand for her. It sounds, I mean, it sounds like overly simplistic, but there's a reason for that. My 6-year-old self likes to connect with her, and she has been around. You know, I started making contact with her out of the blue, like not out of the blue, out of the blue, pun intended, I suppose. Like probably in late Feb, maybe. Like after I'd started really digesting like what this actually meant to me, and the real challenge to see and feel this all again, and really something. And I wonder too, you know, when we talk about this Russian ET alliance, going back into, I think it was was it 1934? I don't know what the date is on this, but we know Edgar Casey, in one of his the Sleeping Prophet, and back in one of his readings, he had something about Russia being the hope of the world. And I did look this up online, and I think this is verbatim from his reading. Through Russia comes the hope of the world, not in respect to what is sometimes termed communism, no, but freedom, that each man will live for his fellow man. The principle has been born there. It will take years for it to be crystallized, yet out of Russia again comes the hope of the world. And I think if you're listening to Western media right now, that's probably not an easy thing to hear. However, I think there's a lot of truth potential in that statement. So, how are you guys doing? How are you guys doing? Oh, I was sad when my little girl's like wanting her dolly, and she's like being electrocuted. I mean, this is terrible. Just give me a minute there. Okay, let's go into the second read here. The second time this happened to me was a week later, and oh, what is this? 22nd January was a week later. So and I'm not looking for this, you guys. That's what's really interesting. Like this is not planned at all. And this one is kind of related to the first thing, and I'll read this and you'll see why. It's basically about ETs intervening, intercepting the bombing of an American military base. Yeah, it was intense in other ways. But this reading it had really beautiful qualities, or this recall, like, um, something really poignant about this. So again, did the same thing, wake up, do my, somatic breath work, lying down in the dark. I'm still in bed. I'm not in the beta brainwave state yet, not getting up, moving through the world, and cutting into it kind of quickly, because I kind of understand now what's going on. I can identify that I'm being brought back into the silver bullet, and I'm going to get a recall about one of my viewings, one of the many, many viewings, right? And I see soldiers marching, soldiers in fatigues, army fatigues, shiny black boots, and I hear a drill sergeant yelling. I'm seeing a black commander, he's African American. They're on a street. There seems to be a body of water on my right side. They're marching down the street, and it's like they're training, doing drills, basic training or something. Remember, this is kind of taken from me just speaking into a recorder, so the language is pretty casual. What's interesting is I don't feel them armed. They are unarmed. There are buildings. There's buildings on my left brick facade, and then there's a sudden explosion in front of the soldiers and a kind of pandemonium breaking out. I see a really high-tech white missile. They're being bombed from above. There's an explosion on the ground from the air, and I see this very, sleek looking gray-white speeding, I call it a speeding weapon. It has like wings, like little flares, and feels man-made. It is extremely high-tech. So also when I'm reading, any kind of reading that I do, I'm just kind of describing all the energies, all the visions, all of what I see without necessarily naming it. That's the best way to get an accurate read. Don't try and analyze it with your mind. Just take what you're, it feels like a speeding weapon. It's a white thing. It's a gray white, like a bullet. I don't know what this is, and just keep going. So that is how I work. And I say again, it's extremely high tech. I feel the handler lady I've been bonded to, the Navy lady. She's saying, you have to remember to bring this back in one piece, not in fragments. She's kind of interrupting right there. The explosion. This is a warhead. I see it. It's white. It has that kind of nose on it. But what happens in the aftermath of this, there's an explosion. I feel people in slow motion catapulted backwards. And then there's this calm, almost like a stupor. And everything goes silent. Everything is silent and peaceful. And I see the ship, the light ship. And I don't want to assume whose ship it is. I'm not sure, but the energy is very light. It's favorable. It's positive. This is not negative. And this is exactly how it came through on the tape. Wow, this is fucking mind-blowing. It's like a benevolent extraterrestrial force, a race or races, making itself known. And interestingly, it's making themselves known to the military. They feel like they're intervening in a war, intervening in what just happened, intervening to stop war, aggression, bloodshed, and the usual thing on Earth. But the thing is, they're revealing themselves, and the soldiers who've been kind of shunted and stunned by the initial blast of the explosion, it's like they've seen angels or God. They're all looking up at the sky, and they're like, wow, but not in a bad way. There's no panic in this situation. I made a note on the craft. It's not a disc, but it has some blocky turreted forms and geometric forms, as well as rounded edges. It's an interesting craft. Yeah, very, very much so. And certainly, definitely not a war craft or fighter craft. This feels like a huge intervention, the likes of which our planet has never seen before in broad daylight. And I say that because it's an intentional reveal. Benevolent races have certainly intercepted things like this before on our planet. But in this case, they're coming right out to say, we are here and this is unacceptable. I mean, it's really quite moving what's happening here. And I'm starting to cry. I'm starting to have all of this emotion coming through the recording. Really, I mean, it's beautiful in a way. And I go on. Oh, loud, angry voice. Tell us who they are. Tell us who they are. This is my handlers at Montauk. I actually feel a little sickened that this voice seems to be coming from the handler, my Navy lady. Yeah. When I'm not cooperating and blocking the intel, they're giving me more electroshock. In these moments when I'm having too much self-mastery in the situation, yeah, they want to intercept my resistance and they ratchet up the pain. And also, it does something with time, as though it makes it more intense what I'm viewing, and it speeds it up. So it almost it's like speeding up time when they engage more of the, how do we say, electrokinetic force, I think, or so. Um, can also tell the Montauk handlers are sick and tired of my interference. Yeah, they just want to see this as I'm seeing it. And I can tell they're wanting to adapt the technology so they can just look at this on the screen without the child interface because it's so problematic when the kids are outsmarting the system. I kind of love that. Um, it does feel Pleiadian, by the way. The ship feels Pleiadian. And to be clear, the initial opening scene of what I'm viewing today, which is actually from a long time ago, is American military. This feels like the same Pleiadian group they identified before that was in alliance with the Russians. And I hear through a passage of channeled light language, here represents the possibility of peace on earth finally coming. Um, hmm. I kind of wondered too if this was like, was this a false flag operation, or I don't know. So we can wonder who sent the bomb. Anyway, let's move on. Um, yeah, it's so much of this is mainly about the ETs revealing. I continue on the recording saying it's interesting that their way of intercepting all this is just by showing up and saying we are here. That's all. There's no aggression on their part. It has a way of stopping everything in its tracks. So at the beginning, we see the timeline potential of the missile making contact and reaching its target, exploding. But ultimately, the ETs keep this from happening. We see a diversion pathway and explore two possibilities at once. Even in the scenario where the missile meets its target, the ETs do reveal themselves. Ultimately, though, no one is hurt and they are in awe, meaning the people are in awe. And the way the military personnel are observing this is 100% and absolutely receptive. They are not afraid, and there's no fear. They are welcoming. And again, my voice started breaking in the recording. You can also listen to this one on my blog on the website. I can link it below if you're interested in it. And you also might find yourself regressing into a different brainwave state if you're empathic and kind of in training with me or attuning with me. And it's slow. You'll listen to some pauses inside of it, as I'm just breathing and how the info is relaying, through the great quantum field and through my subconscious. And it's the same as before. They're powering down the tech, and my child's body is rather unconscious. Yeah, and it's almost as if my body is hovering. In this situation, on this recall, I could feel myself like hovering above the support, the vertical support, the structure of the silver bullet is not actually supporting me. I'm almost like a levitation of my small body, and I'm violently slamming down as I power down the tech. And the handler lady has a cool cloth, and I'm looking for her to help me in some way because that is all there is. Let's pause. Let's have a breath through that. Yeah. And that little bit of, again, the handler lady, I've said my piece on her. Yeah. It's heartbreaking to me. Like, what has to happen to a person to end up in that position? Are they being mind controlled themselves? We can wonder, because the scientists in the text and the masterminds at Montauk, I mean, to me, they seem like psychopaths. Not somebody who's necessarily could be, a handler, but more the upper echelon of the minds inside of Montauk. This is so problematic again because of all of the inversion of our humanity that's needed to be able to be the perpetrator. What has to go on for those people? Are they even people at that point? I don't know. And how turned off do you have to be inside to your own humanity to execute these kinds of commands? from your own bosses. Are your bosses human? Right? Interesting fodder there. So, yeah, just pausing there for a second. Um, Thanks for bearing with me through my reading. I'm never going to be a person who just like reads my whole script, like comes online and just like the whole video is just me reading. I don't like that. Um, Keep it real. But those, the descriptions there are best said in true to form, just like they came out of my mouth in the initial recall, right? Yeah. So this brings me to something else that is pretty relevant. So back in oh, this was the end of March. So I had a Q&A with Edges of Eternity channel, one of the Russian channels that I'm on these days. One of the questions was, why haven't the ETs revealed themselves yet? And of course, that's like ever the provocative question. Like we could get into a heated discussion about that now and all be yelling at each other in about 60 seconds flat on this topic. So I'm aware that it's heated, but I decided, what the hell, I'll just do a little reading about this on my own. I did, and just kind of blithely, it was like a Sunday afternoon, and I'm like, hey, I'll just check this out. Because it's, it's on my mind, it's on everybody's mind in a way, like what's going on with ET disclosure on this planet right now. And I opened up the reading and the energies are just like blasting out. They're so intense, so intense. Wow. And so I can feel all this energy of conflict, right? And this conflict, energetic signatures that are coming from various, points, various groups and so on and so forth, sides of the story and everything. So again, I'm doing a little reading here. As I launch into this reading, I feel a great, underlined great amount of effort and energy force unto itself, fighting to prevent it. And the battle has not been won yet, this you must know. And it feels like an off-world energy system, like that's fighting to prevent this. It's the upper echelon of its structure, with bleed down into Earth. And I feel like, oh, wow, they can't yet. This info is so strong. They can't come in the en masse way, the overt and extravagant way that we're usually thinking of, right? And I hear now they work to prevent things in other ways and to prevent even greater destruction. But still they appear to those with eyes to see. These are the ones who will set the world free, meaning the humans like you and I, people who may be watching this, who are willing to already see the ET presence as it is and has been all around us, which helps hasten disclosure on the planet, right? I mean, I'm thinking about I'm here in Alaska. I think this was last month, April. We had that. Did you guys see this? It was that spinning pinwheel, a beautiful blue spiral of light, threaded through with the aurora. And this was captured less than 100 miles from here where I live. And it made some headlines, and they were calling it, like, the official story was that it was like like SpaceX jet fuel or something, and people were believing that. It was so beautiful. This could never have been exhaust. Are you kidding me? Anyway, just riffing on that a little bit. So, and I see kind of, anyway, we all see our unusual phenomena. We know they're around. So really, I'm continuing on with a lot of information here. This was the most complex exopolitical reading I have ever done in my whole life. It was intensely formidable in a way and very in-depth. I also saw some heated disagreement between galactic groups and the Confederation about how to approach this, and certainly not any level of fighting, but just kind of conversations going on there, and really, really heated on the dark side. Like the cabal I saw working with dark energy and also working with time to prevent ET disclosure. I mean, this doesn't really surprise me. I just hadn't looked into it before. And then here's the thing that got me. Wow, not expecting this at all. I'm going into the reading and I said, like, I feel things viscerally, like I'm taken, witness the silver bullet, I'm taken quite experientially into places and times beyond my location, right? Beyond this now moment. So I'm taken into a war zone, and I realize I'm literally standing in the middle of the Ukrainian conflict. There's this stubbly brown field. There's firing on either side of me. I hear people yelling. It's super intense. And literally in the reading, I'm sweating and trying to get my breath. Like, I want to get out of here. There's explosions on either side. And yeah, I'm definitely caught in the middle of all of this. The point, though, is to land me there so I would understand how much of a part Ukraine is playing, the Ukraine war is playing in what happens and how disclosure plays out. ET disclosure is connected to the outcome of the Ukraine war. Ukraine's outcome seems to change the course of disclosure, be tethered to it in some way. I think this is pretty complicated, and I'd be the first to say there's a lot more going on with Ukraine than that, but this seems to be a piece of it as far as what I'm observing. And the longer the war stalls, the longer disclosure is stalled, right? And recently on Telegram, I just a week or two ago, last week, I think, I wrote a piece about this. And this is just a snippet of it. It's been said that the war in Ukraine is the deep state's last stand. But is the ongoing conflict also a covert ET disclosure war? Could Ukraine be at the center of the epic battle on this planet to hide the truth of our galactic legacy? The longer the war is forestalled, the longer the deep state gets what they want: a manipulatable global population in ongoing ignorance. In this scenario, Russia plays the part of disclosure advocate. And I also saw in the reading that Putin himself stalls because of a timing issue. I had the sense that many things had to align properly, and given everything that's come through, I can kind of believe this. But it's interesting, we see the cabal working with time and Putin himself having a time issue. Interesting. So also I looked up, and so preface this by saying, here's something you might or might not know about me. I don't do a lot of research, and there's a reason for that. It's because as a seer, I don't want to be front-loaded. As someone who does work psychically, a lot of times I want to know nothing about a topic. That makes the best reading, right? So, I mean, I've been really, I've taken heat for this, heat that has been unwarranted and really out of line. People saying, well, why haven't you read so-and-so's body of work? And why don't you know all of this and this and this? Because I'm going to be a good reader. And I will start to research things when I've gotten a lot of information on my own and gathered what I can psychically and intuitively. So my point being, though, that I'm going to do a little screen share on this. I went back and found this. This came into my awareness. This was Michael Salla back in March of 2022. This is an article he put on exopolitics, right? This is buried Ukrainian space ark in Kherson activates, so Russia takes over. True or not, we don't know. This is through his I'll leave that there for a moment. This is through JP, his US Army source. Yeah. So JP had talked about, different, yeah, I think it's not too long, but JP had talked about, like buried ships basically that were to be activating around the planet, and one of them was buried in southern Ukraine. And this being the premise of the article, is this why the invasion has taken place? Because Russia is wanting to control that in part so that the cabal cannot. Yeah, the discovery of a buried space ark and Russia's desire to take control of it offers a compelling explanation for Russia moving in. So there is that. Yeah, we're just presenting these things as open questions. A lot of this is pretty heated topic-wise, right? And two, this is a fun share. I'll give you something here. This is an art piece that I made in April. This is a couple weeks after I had done this reading and gotten, of course, I'd already had all you know, everything else I talked about here today already. This was just a sketch I made. I work late at night sometimes, especially as it's, you know, it's light kind of around the clock here almost, and I don't sleep as early as I should. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I thought it was interesting. I never thought anything about the content on here. I just let come what was coming, and I noticed, wow, these look like in the beginning they begin as in the beginning they begin in the they started off looking like kind of like missiles. They're long and skinny like that, but they become these vehicles of light. And to me, it spoke to, you know, that the second viewing I've shared with the ETs intervening and a benevolence kind of, just a benevolence coming, you know, bringing light into the darkness and a different kind of world. Yeah. And this piece is so much about that. I just hadn't seen it before, and I was putting the notes together for this video, and I looked at it again. It's here. I'm recording in my art studio, and I was like, oh, check that out. That's really interesting. A little bit of light language in the background. So I wanted to share that with you. Yeah. And just having a little pause here. Go back into the silver bullet tech, and there's been some more coming in from those recalls. I mean, think about how many there could be if I was sent out that many times, a couple hundred possibly. I don't like to think about that, but anyway, we can go talk about the technology again here. Is she pulling up another document? But wait, let me keep talking to you guys without the reading for a moment. Yeah. I hope you like the aurora behind me, even though I wish you could have been here to see this magnificent, you know, the lights are, if you've never seen the Northern Lights, it's got to be something you do before you leave this incarnation. It's really magic incarnate. It's really special. Really special. I wept the first time I saw the Northern Lights. I was camping in early winter in the Yukon by myself out on the tundra, and it was it's life-changing. You know, these things are life-changing. Anyway, so where are we? We were talking about, so this, what's going on with the silver bullet and all of this, and how does this work? And I don't pretend to have all the answers yet. Maybe someday I'll have more, but yeah, I mean, I can feel how much see, feel, and know it as well intuitively, as well as through my recall, that the torsion fields play a huge part, and plasma physics, as well as electrokinetics, and something about electrogravitics also going on here. I think that's really fascinating, right? And also the something about, you know, I talked about in the recall, like near-death experience having not just the role of being a byproduct of sending me through that awful torture machine over and over and electrocuting me. Inside of it, it's not just that. That's the purpose of the bringing somebody close to death, is that it also opens up the field of consciousness, because you're moving beyond the body, you're moving beyond the normal state of awareness by far. I mean, that's an understatement, right? So it's going to open up the child's ability to see and to retrieve information and to exist in an altered state in a way that cannot be created, quite perhaps in any other way. I think this is compelling, although it's not compelling enough for me to say that I think bringing people close to death so this can be achieved is ever going to be justifiable at all. Of course. They also use drugs and hypnosis, and I will read a little bit more. We'll go into deeper here with that, but they could also, so we might be saying, well, like, how did you locate the target? Like, how was this accomplished? So what I recall is that they could send me to coordinates, space-time coordinates. They could send me in a way that was fairly accurate, but they had two things going on. I was made to know exactly what I was looking for, through a kind of abusive procedure, and to agree to find it basically. But also it was like my ability and how I'd been trained to be, and the role I was forced to play there, made me the more sensitive instrument. So I was doing the fine tuning of locating the target, if that makes sense. They needed the child for this, and also pretty interesting. Um, the silver bullet could also age regress, and that's how I got back, so to speak. Because my body would have been too broken, very much too broken to like return me to my home in New Hampshire. After that, so they did regress my body. And I didn't realize this at first, but I have come to understand through all my recall that, wow, it's not just forward fetching and future fetching that we're doing, we're age regressing, past regressing, slow it down and go into the past. Yeah. Let me elaborate on this a bit. I hope you guys are learning something interesting or having some new thoughts on something. So this is me doing a little reading, intuitive reading, and here we go. This is, again, I think this is back in January. Wow, late January. I want to understand better the mechanics of the silver bullet, the torsion fields, the plasma physics. Yeah, as I explore this further, I feel a very high oscillation that can be increased and decreased, and that it can be reversed. I have the feeling of speed, charged particles moving very quickly, charged particles and altered states of matter. And I hear what's done can be undone. Yeah, this is suggestive of the age regression aspect. And again, how I got back. My handlers capitalize introducing pain and trauma coupled with my dissociative tendencies and psi ability to get me to time travel. I see high velocity spiraling energy fields. I feel intense gravitational pull and also its opposite, anti-gravity. Yeah, electrogravitic aspects of this. Like I said, the more pain, the more I leave my body. There seems to be a local image set that they use at the beginning of the process. What is it? It's like pictures or a movie sequence inside my head. I see hypnosis like a watch fob going back and forth, metronome. And then I hear electrogravitics again. I hear thunder and lightning, suggestive of plasma, psychic axis opening. My head feels lit up. I'm screaming in pain. I sound like a wild animal, panting, grunting. I hear the word monstrosities. Yeah. And also I hear Fall of the Yellow Birds, and this has something to do with the visual sequence. The visual sequence meaning how they kind of prep me for all of this before they send me out. I don't know if the bullet itself is spinning, but the effect to my body as I'm inside is, again, that dizziness that I've already talked about, dizzy, spinning, nauseous. My body is rotating faster than the speed of light, faster than the speed of light. Rolling over onto my side, the oscillations feel like tidal waves. Yeah. And then if we look at, do a little research on torsion fields. The torsion field proposes that the quantum spin of particles can be used to cause emanations which carry information through a vacuum many orders of magnitude faster than the speed of light. There you go. And if you look at electrokinetics, what is electrokinetics? It's a branch of physics dealing with the motion of electric currents or charged particles, right? Electrokinetic phenomena occur when an electrical charge causes liquid gases or solids to move from one point to another, which in a way is what they were doing with me. Yeah, and because the results of electrokinetic interactions include movement, theories of electrokinetics can predict how and why specific electrogravitic concepts will succeed. So this is a big research side project I have right now, which is not going to be resolved maybe forever. I don't know. So a friend of mine, he's the engineer geek. He's very into future tech and like anti-gravity vehicles and all of this stuff. He sent me, he's working on the English language edit of a Russian book written by Alexander Frolov, New Aerospace Technologies, and it's all about ether physics. Frolov's book came out in 2012, so my friend is again, he's working on the English edit, or the English, the English edition. And also the work of, he introduced me to the work of Paul LaViolette, who, again, subquantum kinetics and all of this. But this, I'm an intuitive through and through. I'm totally right-brained, you know, and my sort of analytical or conceptual research is really me trying to, let's say, prove in scientific terminology, quantum technology, what I already know intuitively and psychically. So it's kind of interesting to kind of go down this route a little bit to understand, from this perspective. Yeah, I would say too that my ability to journey well for my clients is very much enhanced by all of this. Like when I talk about journeying and reading, again, I've already said this, but it's very first person. Like I can read something first person through the body of my client, through the experience of my client, as if I'm journeying for them. This is every bit of what I was doing in the Silver Bullet. So perhaps there's something left over in my system that allows me to have easier access in that way, for better or worse, you know. Things come through me so experientially, and it's like I said, it's like the empath on steroids. Anyway, thank you for, I feel like I'm like reading quite a bit here today, with purpose though. And as we're on the topic of Montauk, I could mention Augie. If you watch my series, you probably know about Augie. She's the kind of part of me, my 6-year-old aspect, that experienced all of this at Montauk. And when she came in, this was back in, was it 3 years ago? I think it was 3 years ago. She was so damaged. She was so damaged and not integrated, and she'd be kind of wandering around and talking to me like, can you hear me? Can you see me? Where are you? She was deaf, dumb, blind, mute, you know, the whole bit. And somewhat autistic, and she still retains that quality when I interact with her. Again, this is a part of me. This is a part of me. I called her Augie because it's short for, you know, other girl, this other girl that I don't recognize. You know, she doesn't look like me as a 6-year-old. It's almost, and it's the part that was cut off, you know, like the split part of the psyche. And she's been very, what I'm getting at though is Augie is very integrated, and she's like, I would say in a way, is because what do we do with the inner child work? We're reparenting these parts. They need our care and our love. Think about me reaching for the Pleiadian lady in the recall I shared here, and I'm being so devastated that I can't make contact with her. And my heart is so broken. You know, I need my mother. And so when we work with the kids, our inner young parts, we are actively reparenting them and giving them what they didn't have. So I view her as my, you know, my pride and joy, like as my daughter. And that's perfect. You know, I have 6 parts that I work with that are children, you know, these young, I have a 4-year-old self and a 9-year-old self, you know, you know her, she's, I just call her B9. And she was sent to Mars and beyond. She was, you know, in the 20 and back. And she gives me a lot of information about what happened out there. My 4-year-old is very active and is always telling me what kind of mood I'm in. She tells me when I'm happy, and also other things. And my 17-year-old self, my fetal aspect, which is, you know, still in gestation, and then a newborn. So they're not parts I identify as alters, but more these fragments of soul in a way that I've brought back in. They exist as prisoners until we're willing to work with them, because they're carrying our pain. And in inner child session work that I do, you know, this is, again, I'm adept at working with the inner child stuff because I've spent a good bit of like being a student to my own and learning what they have to teach and to bring them home. Yeah. It's very powerful work, I find. A lot of times we think, oh, the child stuff, who cares? But there are the parts of us that have been in a dungeon and they need to be reclaimed. They need our love. You don't have to be in Montauk to benefit from that kind of work. And I can I said before too that you could see them as parts of the subconscious mind. They carry our gifts as well as oftentimes our pain, our wounds, our places that are as yet unhealed. And they can point the way back to wholeness. So just the update there. And it's also, I would say, the children have given me, my children, working with these kids, is the birthplace of self-compassion. I've some of the work that's come up for me in meditation is like seeing my mother and my father as little children or babies. It engenders the softness for others. Or maybe you're just having a conflict with somebody. Imagine them as a small child. What does that do for you? Not just for a flash, not just thinking about it, but sit in meditation and work with your heart and engage that and see how that might change your perspective. But I would first recommend doing that with yourself as a small child. Sit that small child in front of you. Behold that small child, him or her. What do you observe? And spend some time working with your breath and being in the heart space and just making first contact with yourself in this moment. And then just try that out. It might be an interesting reveal for you. Yeah. I guess that's a good segue into going back around from the very beginning. We talked about Dean and like my journey with relational healing, as I call it. I've gotten super, super duper into attachment theory, but because, I've got not just run-of-the-mill kind of disruptions in the attachment bonds early in my life, but we also have things like Dean and the Navy. Is, for example, the Navy lady. That's really going to fuck up a person's attachment system. So, yeah, this is the piece that I'm really hot to heal from. I've become much more securely attached over time as I've done all the work that I've talked about on the channel, and it's ongoing, right? I don't think there's an endpoint. There's no endpoint. Always more to learn and to, I suppose, become better friends with myself, even better acquainted with myself, improve the relationship with myself. But someone came into my life in the last months, right? That really held up the mirror of my own brokenness, I feel. I mean, I saw the brokenness in him, but it was also a mirror of things in myself that I think needed to be shown by someone else. And in a way, he did me a great service. It also showed me my tendency to attract deeply traumatized people or be attracted to them, like seeks like, takes one to know one. And also to attract narcissists, abusive, psychologically manipulative, psychologically abusive people, and worse. If I look at my relationship history, I can see that. I've had my first most significant relationship was a recovering meth and heroin addict, and you don't know any different. I mean, you grow up with some kind of addiction and lots of trauma. You think that roller coaster ride of pleasure and pain is what love is. And I've been certainly bred to believe that and conditioned over many different scenarios to kind of take that belief and make it my own. So that's up for foundational reworking. I mean that in the best way. So let's go into yeah, we could just talk about, you're probably like, why is she talking about attachment theory? We're talking about Montauk and you're going into something totally different. Well, I think trauma, if we talk about trauma, we got to talk about, I think it just leads me, because so much of my trauma, of course, is attached to other people and what happened in my natal family and what happened in programs. And I'm responsible for my healing now, nobody else, right? So like trauma in relationship and trauma with others, especially from our caregivers or parents, early in life, creates the blueprint of how we relate to other people for a lifetime. Yeah, think about that. The blueprint we get about how to relate, the beliefs we have about how to relate to other people journeying through a lifetime is forged in the crucible of our first couple of years of life, often in a pre-verbal state. That's creating intense programming. So that's why I've gone deep into the attachment theory thing. Let me unpack that without much more ado here. I think it's significant because through working with our relationships, we help heal the world. And this has given me such a really deep understanding of myself, but also other people who have been in my life, other, loved ones. I mean, I can look at my mother's attachment system and go, oh, yeah, right there. Got it. Understood. What does it mean to be securely attached? It means you're probably pretty open and comfortable relating with other people. Like, you're probably pretty at ease with others. That probably sounds really foreign to a lot of my audience, and certainly has felt that I have felt that way for most of my life, that is a foreign thing. I don't know what that means to feel at ease with other people in closeness. Absolutely not. And you're probably good at, number one, being aware of your feelings and your needs, and two, communicating them, communicating feelings and needs. That's really also foreign to a lot of the templates that you may have been given growing up, or the ways that you would relate to somebody maybe don't include that. I know I, for a long time, had no idea what needs were. What are needs? Like, our basic human needs, our personality needs, our my own need for love and connection, and certainly being able to talk about that first and foremost with myself. That probably wasn't a conversation, and then with anybody else, no way. But I think to be in a secure relationship, securely attached, we have to learn about that stuff. That's really important, at least in my book, at this point on my ever ripening journey. But then there's three kinds of insecure attachment, which most people are insecurely attached in some manner. It's not because their parents were demons, or like awful. You don't have to have crazy trauma to be insecurely attached. You probably just need caregivers and parents who were somewhat inconsistent in how they related with you. Well, first kind of insecure attachment we could talk about is what's often called as anxious preoccupied, and these are the folks who are like come off as pretty needy, and it's because they've been abandoned. They fear abandonment. They want really close contact. Maybe they tend toward codependency and enmeshment because they grew up with that, and they probably had a caregiver who was present enough that they bonded with them. They were safe enough that they bonded with them, but couldn't show up quite consistently. So we have that kind of clingy, craving, grasping. I love you, don't leave. Some of you probably relate to that. Yeah. There's also like the second kind of insecure attachment style would be the dismissive avoidant, and I have tended more toward that myself. It's very relationships cause inner conflict, period, and tend to withdraw from any kind of triggering event with someone else. Any kind of friction with somebody else is going to cause withdrawal and maybe stonewalling. Very uncomfortable with intimacy, emotion, and maybe crave it deeply, but it's so dangerous. It's not tolerable to the system. It causes your inner system, your nervous system, your fight or flight, all of that starting to get activated if you are more dismissively avoidant in your attachment style. And you can have the two poles if you are what's called anxious avoidant or fearful avoidant, also sometimes called disorganized attachment. You swing between those two poles, and that has been me to a T. With that avoidant leaning, fearful avoidant. This is me, fearful avoidant with avoidant leaning. Predominantly avoidant leaning. Although for me, I think that there'd be like this covert part of like, neediness that I would never, ever unveil with anybody. Ever. Oh, no. But, and as I said, I don't relate so much as I've become over the years, better and better with this. But still, I can see pieces of the fearful avoidant aspect, or let's say the disorganized attached part of me, and it's swinging between hot and cold. Have you been with somebody that's been hot and cold, like you're on a roller coaster, everything's all warm and fuzzy, and then the person's gone, or you can't quite know from time to time how they're going to show up, or they're really passionate and close, and then there's some event that maybe, you cannot even perhaps identify what it was. Yeah, and they're gone. A lot of like all or nothing thinking with fearful avoidance, and kind of all in, all out, black and white thinking. And again, the tendency toward, these insecure attachment systems tend toward probably grew up in a home with a lot of enmeshment and codependency, and tend to also exhibit those same qualities later on. And the disorganized, or FA, the fearful avoidant, anxious avoidant, this is all in one names for the same thing I'm talking about here. Those that share both polarities in the spectrum of clingy, needy, and very withdrawn, shut down, come from trauma. That attachment style is 100% a product of trauma. And I think a lot of people here can relate to that. If you kind of start taking a dive into this and like looking at yourself a little bit objectively, or just reflecting on your relationships, and two, clarifying, this is not just about partnership, intimate relationship, romance, etc. But just relationships with anybody, you'll see the same things coming up, the same triggers you'll come upon in yourself. So maybe, dive into this if it feels interesting to you, because I think you could learn a lot about yourself, and also those that you've been involved with, or those you care about. Maybe you care about somebody who's having a tough time. Maybe your partner is, fitting. You're like, oh, that sounds like so and so. Yeah. And I think learning about what their needs are. What is the need of someone who is a fearful avoidant? We need safety. We need safety. I need safety. I need trust and safety, depth. I crave deep intimacy, but that can be so scary, right? I think lots of people on this channel watching probably have good loads of trauma, traumatic backgrounds. If you're watching stuff about the SSP and all of this, you're going to understand this. So I hope this is some good take home for people. So for me, like, I can see that my basic human need for love and connection has never been met adequately, because a lot of people who know me know I've been super, super independent, like the most resilient, independent person like that they know, right? Isn't that interesting? Like, I can look back at my life, the decades of my life, and see that I created a system in which I needed no one for anything ever. And that was just to stay safe from, developed early on in my life to stay safe from all kinds of, abuse and trauma and torture, and people who, goes without saying, the people who were supposed to be shepherding me safely through childhood were doing the exact opposite. And it had no other way to come out for me. And there was no other way, no other outcome we could have had. And again, bringing compassion, and I can really have a lot of warmth toward that aspect of my life. Like, I'm bewildered about what might happen if I get close to somebody else. I will be hurt. I will be betrayed. And to love is to be abused, right? And that's no longer a big part of my system anymore, but still I can understand why those underpinnings have been there for so long and what they did to me. It was like this coming into my late 40s, understanding how, emotionally starved I'd really been for so long, that I couldn't quite feel. So I'm really working on this in a beautiful way. And it's I guess I've already said this, but it's one of my primary primary things that I'm doing within myself now on my healing path. But and like I said, we relate it back to Dean, the programs and things like that. It makes this even more difficult for me. So, how do we become so we're not wired to seek out people that fit into that template of bonding through trauma, connecting with other people who are really, really badly damaged and maybe are not working on themselves at all, not realizing the pain they're in, or the pain they're causing other people. Yeah, this is a much bigger topic and than I'm really giving justice to today. It's a huge, huge topic, and sometimes in the in the SSP community, sometimes I'm surprised and not, we're not talking more openly about how we heal, and maybe it's because it's not easy moving through this and becoming well as a regular, a human without all this bundle of very esoteric trauma, anomalous trauma is difficult on its own. When we throw in these other layers, it's like, yeah. But we're also resilient creatures. We contain so many resources, and when we begin to unlock them, it becomes a bit of a domino effect, and remarkable and even miraculous outcomes can happen as a result. So yeah, I know in the SSP community, we have to talk about the story. That's the primary thing. It's important for me to talk about what happened in the silver bullet, but I also want to talk about, how do we move beyond all the trauma? How do we move into healthier states in the nervous system and move beyond dysregulated nervous system, central nervous system, and dysregulated emotions, inability to connect with other people, inability to be grounded, and so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot to that, a lot of pieces to the bigger picture of that. Yeah, and for me, all the work I've done with somatic healing, somatic experiencing as a healing modality has helped me enormously to rewire my system, and also my meditation, my spiritual journey, and working with the inner children, journaling, being on a land, and bit by bit, establishing healthy relationships with a few people that I do have that are consistent, that I feel safe with, that I know will show up for me. I'm so grateful for those people in my life, and the constellation of those people is growing all the time. And functionally, I would say, to heal, I talk about relationship being, healthy relationships change the course of this timeline. But functionally, that begins with a healthy relationship to self. When I talk about my own journey, I can see that what I've done for years is recreating, rehabilitating, rebirthing the relationship I have to myself. There's been so much shame, so much I am worthless, and like horrible inner narratives. And you can't escape that, given what someone who's survived this kind of torture. You're not going to be, there's no other way you could be. Of course, that's going to be a psychological byproduct, a psychological underpinning of all of this. No question, hands down. But being able to see it so clearly now is the gateway and the portal through which healing is had. So remember that primarily the relationship that you have with yourself is going to be the template for creating healthy relationship with other people. Yeah. So another pause. Thanks for journeying with me through that bit. I just felt like it's so beautifully on my plate right now. I wanted to share it because I think that it's so relevant to anybody watching. If our attachment systems are recreated in a secure template, we change our lives. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we'll start to close the session today. If you do want help with the inner child work or any kind of starseed coaching, intuitive coaching, or readings, I am still, and so on. You can find all my services on my website, linked below. And I'm still doing the audio sessions through the summer. I'll be doing live sessions again later in September, and be talking about new Mars memories, contraband on Mars, shootouts on Mars, yeah, air raids on Mars, and so on, when I come back next round. And what else? Yeah, love to hear your thoughts, feelings, anything on your work with your attachment system and relational stuff in the comments as well. And I'm just pausing to, I think, just offering the merit, the love, the compassion, the wisdom of our journey together today to survivors in Montauk, and I think even more so those that died in Montauk. Yeah. so that their journeys not be forgotten. And to all the children, and to also the children that we, in a way, eternally are, children of the universe. I'll see you in the next round. It'll be video 17. It's taken me 3 years to make 16 videos in this series. Bye-bye for now. Just to mention this briefly, I have a mother and father from a previous lifetime, Indigenous mother and father, and I just call them simply mother and father. They've been with me every day for about 2.5 years. They were my parents from a previous lifetime with the Crow people, and they've helped me heal so much. They've done soul retrieval work for me. They helped me journey to get parts back. And that's actually ongoing. Like even today, I was working with them this morning. And their love is so beautifully unconditional.